Thank you for listening to PoliticalStorm.com. I'm John Small. Many folks have been saying, boy, it sure seems like it's been warm lately. Well, it has been. As a matter of fact, we've been having some record temperatures, and we're going to be talking a little bit about climate change. Now, usually, when you say the words climate change, people sometimes get a little snarly and upset. Well, we're going to be visiting with an expert on climate change today. We've got Dr. Peter Ward. He's worked in this industry for a long, long time, and he's got a new book out called What Really Causes Global Warming, Greenhouse Gases or Ozone Depletion. First of all, let's say hello to Dr. Ward. How are you today, sir?
John, I'm good.
I'm not sure what it is about human nature, but we always like to talk about the weather. And lately, you keep hearing people say, sure has been warm lately, hasn't it? And you and I were just talking ahead of time. You said June was the hottest June on record. Is that right?
Yes, there was a release came out just recently saying it also marks the 14th consecutive month of record-breaking heat.
Wow. So it's not just in my head. It has been warm then, hasn't it?
It has, and it's worldwide.
And we're on track right now for 2016 to be the hottest year on record as well.
Yes.
Now, temperatures are higher all over the place. I see that even like in Alaska, 10 degrees warmer than usual. You know, so you think about 10 degrees, that doesn't sound like a lot, but that is quite a bit. It makes a huge difference, doesn't it?
Well, it certainly does. And the amount of ice in the Arctic Ocean this summer is an all-time low again. So, I mean, when we talk world temperatures, averages, a degree is a lot. But in many areas, it is 10 degrees, 5 or 10 degrees.
Now, let's talk a little bit about your background, because you've been working in this field for quite some time, and you're quite the authority on climate change. And I'd like to just kind of learn a little bit more about what you've been doing for the last 27 years or so.
Well, I worked 27 years with the United States Geological Survey, working primarily on volcanoes, earthquakes, and other natural hazards. And then I retired. And about 10 years ago, I came across an enigma, something that just did not make sense. I found in the ice cores in Greenland records that at the end of the last ice age, the greatest volcanism we've seen for tens of thousands of years was exactly at the time we warmed out of the last ice age. Huh. And this didn't make sense because all climatologists and volcanologists know that big explosive volcanoes like Mount Pinatubo in 1991 cause cooling of the Earth. And so I said, how can volcanoes cause both cooling and warming? And the more I looked at the data, the better the data looked. So I basically decided to put all of my effort, and being retired, that means all of my effort, into understanding the science for the last 10 years. And what's interesting is that certain kinds of volcanoes do cause warming, and the current high temperatures seem to be related to the eruption of the volcano Barðabunga in Iceland a couple of years ago. Barðabunga emitted 33 square miles of basaltic lava like you see in Hawaii in 6 months, the highest rate of lava production since 1783. And this type of lava production is associated throughout geologic time with warming. So I believe that the major warming we're dealing with right now, which is very rapid compared to what's been happening over the last several decades, that goes back to Barðabunga volcano.
Again, our guest today is Dr. Peter L. Ward, and he has a new book out called What Really Causes Global Warming, Greenhouse Gases or Ozone Depletion. Dr. Ward, how long did it take to put this book together?
Well, it's taken me 10 years to do the research. I mean, about a year and a half ago, I wrote a major website to provide all the information for scientists who would begin to look at this new approach. And so then writing the book was just one step beyond that. But I have the website, whyclimatechanges.com. Gives great detail. The book is accessible there or through Amazon or any other book dealer. But much of that material is available on the website and is written in a way that people who are non-specialists can understand it.
Now, whether it's right or wrong, climate change has become a very political issue as well. And you say the words climate change, and some people will start to snarl and get very upset. With the information that you're talking about, it seems to me as though we, the people, are far less significant in the problem than maybe some people are saying. So as this new information has come to light, What is it like, and how well received is this information by the people who are making a big case that it has to do with you and the car that you drive, and that's what's causing global warming? How is this information being perceived by them?
Well, for 150 years, most scientists working in this area are convinced that greenhouse gases are the cause of global warming. And they're not much interested in listening to what I'm saying. I'm having a very hard time getting them to think seriously, to step back and look at the data and think seriously about what's going on. I understand the basis for why they think greenhouse gases are the cause, but it turns out there was a fundamental mistake made about 150 years ago, an assumption made about how we calculate energy, how we calculate thermal energy in the atmosphere. And understanding now what the way we should calculate energy, it appears that greenhouse gases cannot be the cause of global warming. And yet we're preparing now worldwide to spend over $1 trillion to reduce greenhouse gases. And unfortunately, that'll be wasted, and it'll cost thousands of dollars out of your pocket and mine and everybody else's.
Again, when we go back to politics, politically, they said the answer to global warming is carbon credits. Well, so with the research that you've uncovered and what you've done, kind of sounds to me like maybe that's not necessarily the answer. Carbon credits kind of sounds like it might be a bit of a waste of time.
Well, the way to treat greenhouse gases is to make the use of fossil fuels more expensive so that we use less fossil fuels. And the carbon credits are basically one of the approaches to do that. But what I'm saying now is the greenhouse gases are not the cause of global warming, have not been the cause of global warming, and reducing greenhouse gases will simply not solve the global warming problem.
Again, our guest today is Dr. Peter L. Ward. Now, Dr. Ward, I don't know if you pay attention to politics at all or if you're political, but one of the things that I will tell you is I've been paying attention to politics, and I've been paying attention very closely to this election for our next president. And we have one candidate that is saying we need to close down the coal mines, and we've got another candidate that's saying we need to dig more coal. Now, there are some people that agree with one, there are some people that agree with the other, but with the information that you're putting forth here, the reason that people are saying close the coal mines is they say that's what's causing global warming. You're saying, no, it's volcanoes. So with this information, it doesn't make a lot of sense to close down the coal mines, does it?
Well, I've spent a fair amount of time in the last year on Capitol Hill, talking to both sides, trying to convince people that there's something important here. I mean, already we are closing down coal mines, and yet coal mines are not the responsible for global warming. Coal is our ultimate source of fossil fuel. It's going to last a lot longer than any other fossil fuel out there. And we're going to depend on it in the future. And the greatest supplies of coal are in North America. And the greatest supplies in North America are basically in Wyoming and this area. So coal will be a major part of our future. But at the moment, because the belief of greenhouse gases is a problem, we're causing irreparable damage to the development of coal.
Again, our guest today, Dr. Peter L. Ward. Dr. Ward, again, the book is available right now, What Really Causes Global Warming, Greenhouse Gases or Ozone Depletion. What is the website, once again, that you were telling me about?
WhyClimateChanges.com.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. And also thank you for putting your heart and soul into working on this, because I know that this is something that right now there's a lot of people, sadly, for political reasons, that are pushing agendas that don't make a whole lot of sense if they know all of the answers. I remember when there was a movie that came out, The Inconvenient Truth. Have you seen that movie at all?
Oh, yes.
And how much of that movie was based on fact and how much of that was based on opinion?
That movie was based on scientific understanding at the time it was put together. And it was a sincere effort to communicate the science to the public. But the really inconvenient truth is what I've discovered, and that is that greenhouse gases are not the cause, despite the fact that the vast majority of scientists right now will tell you that greenhouse gases are the cause of global warming. And
even with the new information being out, there are people that are conveniently trying to just pretend like this information's not out, and they're still trying to say that we humans are to blame.
Well, it's a part of human nature that when you've worked all your lifetime and written lots of papers and other things discussing one point of view, it's very hard for you to change your point of view. And what I'm causing right now is a fairly major revolution in science, and those don't come about easily. A lot of sincere people have worked very, very hard to try to understand climate. Unfortunately, we're misunderstanding some of the key science, and there are new data now to show that we need to look at very carefully. You know, science is never settled. We never really completely understand everything. And it turns out in this case, we've made a mistake, and we need to step up to the plate and deal with it.
2016 could be the hottest year on record if things keep up. We've got this heat wave kind of sweeping the nation, and not just the nation, but the world. So do you kind of have some tips on what people should maybe be doing? I know I can't really control volcanoes, so that's kind of out of the question. But what can I do as just a regular person to maybe make it through the heat wave okay, and also help those that I love that are around me?
Well, to deal with a heat wave, it's very important, one, to have plenty of water, plenty of hydration. Secondly, don't do really major physical exertion in the middle of the day and in the hot areas. You need to control the heat, and that's something you personally can deal with as to how much energy you expend when and where you do it. It's very important that we recognize that not only is it hotter, but there's also the sun is more dangerous now. It is there's more ultraviolet B reaching the Earth now than there was 20, 30 years ago, and that's what causes sunburn and skin cancer. So cover up, but keep cool, and drink lots of water. And also raise the question with others. Say, do we really understand climate change?
Yeah.
There appears to be a major misunderstanding here, and let's talk about it.
Well, thank you so much for talking with us about it, and thank you for caring enough to pass along the information. And it's interesting because, like I said earlier in the program, usually when the words climate change come up, people get a little bit feisty, and they kind of think part of the problem is we've had one side telling us this is the way it's going to be, and you just have to believe it. We've had that for quite some time, and there are people that would ask a question, and they'd say, you know, I just don't understand. Then how did global warming happen before we were driving these cars? And there just really wasn't an answer, and you kind of get shot down. So I appreciate that you've got this information out, and hopefully this will help people have a better conversation and maybe even get rid of some of the arguments from both sides.
I mean, I see both sides as being relatively sincere. I mean, they're looking after what they understand, what they think is correct. The problem is right now the science is not correct, and it's very important that good science help enlighten public policy.
Well, I appreciate you putting the time and effort into all of the studies that you've done on this, and it really answers some questions for me. There were things that were just not quite adding up with the theories that they had before, that global warming was man-made, because we weren't around the last time they had global warming, and the dinosaurs weren't driving cars, so it just never really made a whole lot of sense to me before. But now, with your theory and the information that you've uncovered, it just makes a whole lot more sense to me. For whatever reason, the other stuff just never really seemed to add up.
Yeah, if you look, I mean, I'm a geoscientist, and I know Earth history pretty well. And as you look back in Earth history, the evidence for greenhouse gases causing the warming is very poor. And you know, it's never been shown experimentally that if you increase the greenhouse gases, you actually cause the air to get warmer. Never been shown experimentally. It's unbelievable that it could be so important now, and yet that basic fundamental science has never been done.
Why is it that so many scientists jumped on that bandwagon? I remember back when Al Gore came out with the movie Inconvenient Truth. I suppose it's been about a decade ago now. I remember reading stories about scientists who disagreed with these theories, and they were shunned by the scientific community and discredited as much as they could be. Why is it that so many people got on board with that theory if the evidence is just not there?
The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change was formed by the United Nations in 1988, and the purpose of that group was to show that there was consensus among the scientists that greenhouse gases were the cause of global warming. And they've written tens of thousands of pages of reports over the last 30 years, 28 years or whatever, and they have shown again and again that the current scientific thinking shows that greenhouse gases are the cause. What's wrong is a fundamental assumption they made in the mathematics and the physics. And so the models that you hear so much about, the computer models, are simply wrong. But they don't understand that, and they won't accept that right now. I mean, in many ways, I'm a lone wolf crying in the wilderness, and I'm trying to get through. I've sent personal email to over 2,000 scientists saying, look, we got a problem here. We've got to stand up to it. It's important that the scientists solve this problem, that it not be a political football. But so far, I've only got a handful of scientists who are at least even talking to me politely.
So when it comes to politics, since global warming has now become such a political issue, I know you mentioned you had been out on Capitol Hill. Are the politicians taking you seriously now that you've got this evidence? Are they listening? Are they interested?
The Republican side is very much interested. They're still not quite sure how much to trust me, but they're beginning to understand better. The Democratic side is convinced they're right. They're convinced that there are thousands of scientists that say this is the way it is. And as a lead scientist said to me recently, you know, Peter, there's just no way that you could be correct and all the rest of us could be wrong. Well, unfortunately, there is.
Yeah.
He's actually beginning to regret that statement.
Well, here's a quick example on that. For thousands of years, they said it was impossible for man to fly until about 100 years ago, just a little over 100 years ago. A couple of bicycle mechanics from Ohio went out to North Carolina, and they had the first successful manned flight at Kitty Hawk, and all of a sudden the impossible became possible. And nowadays we have airplanes that weigh more than buildings, and they're flying through the air. It's possible now, but at one point, everybody on this planet would have looked you in the eye and said, that is impossible. But now it happens every day.
Gandhi put it very succinctly when he basically said, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win.
Yeah.
And that's human nature.
Well, I'm looking forward to the time when you get to that third one where you win. Thank you again for doing all that you're doing, and thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. Again, our guest has been Dr. Peter Ward. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you, John, and keep cool.
I'll do what I can. Again, Dr. Ward's book is called What Really Causes Global Warming, Greenhouse Gases or Ozone Depletion. It's available right now at Amazon. Thank you so much for listening to PoliticalStorm.com. I'm John Small.